We're not anti-drug. This isn't about anti the pharmaceutical industry. This is not anti-drug itself. Now, on the contrary, drugs are incredibly important. I mean, they are the mainstay of the different forms of treatment that we deliver in primary care and general practice, and absolutely essential, of course. So we're not against drugs. We're not against the people who produce the drugs. We're not against the pharmaceutical industry or anything like that. We're just bothered by the advertising, and in particular, the advertising that goes through drug reps.
GPs need to know what the latest drugs are. They need to know the latest information. It's about where you're getting that source of information from. And I work as a GP half-time, and I know how, pressed for time most GPs are. So really it's trying to maximise the best quality information you can get in the shortest possible time.
Well, if you're seeing drug reps, you're spending time that is effectively part of your continuing medical education that you could be spending somewhere else. Now, they are doing their job, but they're not necessarily giving you the best information or all the information about how to manage that condition. So if you want to learn about it, is that the best way to do it? Consider that it's an opportunity cost in that you could be talking to colleagues or getting the best guideline or the best new research on that particular topic and be doing that in that time instead.
So I'm an academic GP now, but I still practice clinically as well. I actually started off life as a full-time GP, not in academia at all. And I used to see drug reps until I had some kind of epiphany and I realized that this was a waste of time. I didn't enjoy the process. I didn't enjoy the fancy footwork with the drug reps, and so I just stopped seeing them. And it was a great relief to me. I found it so much better. I've sought my information from other sources, and I was able to spend that time, which was often several consultations a week. I was able to spend that time finding information on my own, which I knew would be less biased and better. General practice is actually quite a lonely occupation. We're busy with patients all the time, so it feels like you're talking all the time and with people all the time, but actually you're lonely in terms of talking to your peers. And that is something which I think drug reps exploit. They are friendly, in fact they are rehearsed in being friendly and nice. They pick up all sorts of personal details about you. They're actually trained in how to do that. So that's a very welcome relief for many GPs to have a friendly person that come back, from 2 months ago, and they ask about your wife or your husband and your children, dog and all that kind of stuff. And that again is very dangerous, because we need to find other ways of doing the social things that make us feel good and able to talk about our patients and talk about the problems we've got, about the information needs we have. And to rely on drug reps for that is again thin end of a wedge.
So I did see drug reps occasionally when I began practice, but discovered pretty quickly that the information that I got and the time that I gave up just wasn't worthwhile. I wasn't necessarily getting the best information. Early on in our journal clubs, we'd actually let drug reps come in, would provide us with information, but then we'd discover we weren't getting the best information on that topic. So after a while, we just gave up. So I personally didn't see drug reps. We didn't have them involved in the journal club anymore. Not because they're bad people, not because the information was terrible, but it's because there was better things to do with that precious time. So in my personal practice, no, I never saw drug reps. I would get a lot of my information by reading the EBM journal, looking at guidelines, and in particular discussing this at a journal club where we'd get together with the rest of the practice to talk about difficult clinical issues, changes in practice, etc. That was the best use of my precious time.
One of the things that's hard for GPs is they can be working, even when they're in a group practice, they can feel very much like they're working independently. And so one of the things that's important is that we manage to have meetings between GPs more, where they can actually talk about these things and discuss them, talk about difficult cases, and when a new drug comes on the market, actually talk amongst themselves about how they would actually use this drug and who it's suitable for.
One of the other traps here is that doctors think they can outwit their drug reps. I hear what they're saying, I get the free lunch, but I make my own decisions. That's wrong. In fact, the drug reps are actually trained in how to deal with that. They know exactly what to do. if they detect that you're ignoring what they're saying. And they have a whole bunch of different strategies which are probably quite effective. In fact, we know they're effective because we've got data from the literature, studies have done to show that the sort of people who listen to drug reps and go and have a lot of input with drug reps, a lot of contact with drug reps, are much more likely to prescribe more expensive, sometimes less effective drugs than people who do not.
The systematic review that I did showed that the quality of prescribing following seeing a pharmaceutical representative was decreased, or there was no change. And I think GPs would be well served to use their time wisely by seeking independent sources of information such as the National Prescribing Service, for example, where representatives come and visit and give sort of academic detailing, and I think you're more likely to get quality information that will benefit your patients out of that.
And everyone thinks that they're sceptical about the information and that they're an independent thinker. But unfortunately, the evidence is that we are influenced by them, even when we think that we're not. So I think that even though we might want to believe that we're not influenced by drug reps and we really independently evaluate what they say, I think the evidence is pretty clear that we do.
And after 6 years of doing the review and ploughing through 58 included studies, I was pretty convinced by the end that it was not a good use of my time to see drug company representatives, and it was much more important for my patients that I sought independent sources of information to inform my prescribing practice.
Of course, my patients don't know whether I see drug reps or not. They don't know that. But I'm convinced they're better off because the information I get is unbiased. It's information that I get to help my patients.
If I was a patient, I would want to see a doctor who kept up to date by looking at the best evidence, not necessarily by seeing drug reps. When I go to a doctor, I want the best treatment, not the latest treatment. Okay, the most recent treatment may not necessarily be the best. Often we don't have a clear picture of the benefits and harms when new pharmaceuticals come on the market. And that's what a drug rep would quite naturally want to inform you about. But we often learn about the balance of benefits and harms with time. We learn the best group of patients to use that with. The harms often, the information about them often comes later. And so getting that balance right suggests actually being a cautious adopter of new practices because, as I say, the latest isn't necessarily the best.
More and more patients are becoming interested in, does my doctor see drug reps? Are they getting freebies that I should know about, which might be adversely affecting the kind of decisions they're making about my health? And we know that the consumer organizations have already become alert to this and are very interested in it. I bet that very soon patients will soon be wanting to know that kind of information about their doctors, and we'll soon be putting up that information for them to consume.